want to introduce um, a gentleman who has been a U.S. ambassador, who has been widely successful in business, who came from very humble backgrounds, an example of great inspiration. I'd like to introduce and welcome to the show Ambassador Dave Phillips. Welcome to the show, Ambassador Phillips.
Thank you, sir. I am thrilled to be on your show. And here I am right before Christmas. Everybody's running around.
Oh, I love it. And that you're perfect for the holidays. That, we'll air it on syndication, then we'll keep re-airing it all the way through the holidays to get people. Your book again is called Come On American. We'll get to that. But I want to go to Dave. You talk about specifically enough your life. Did you ever think that you would accomplish what you've been able to accomplish in your life growing up?
No, I did not. I did not. It's not. It's the diversification. I mean, it's not one thing. That's what I never thought I'd be able to touch these different bases.
Great. Okay, Dr. Hall, your question for for Ambassador Phillips.
Oh yeah, no problem. Well, this show certainly is about inspiration, and I think Ambassador Phillips is likely one of our most inspiring guests. Ambassador Phillips, can you tell us a little bit about where you grew up and a little bit about your childhood?
Well, I grew up here in High Point, North Carolina. I was born here, raised here, and live here. And I've told many people, I'm lucky that this is the town that I feel so at home here, even though I've traveled the world. And I'm just so grateful that I'm still here in this town.
So you see that your roots are important to you.
They are. And I had lunch today with someone who had moved here. He was asking all about High Point and area cities, and I said, I am so grateful to come back here to this town, and I just feel at home. So most people travel and move to other cities, and I don't know, I just love this little town.
And that's humble beginnings, and then staying there is such an important thing. I look at myself with my nationally syndicated radio show, radio network, and the celebrities I've interviewed to be Pittsburgh. What a great place. I will always want to be in Pittsburgh. I love the city of Pittsburgh, and I know nothing different about it. And I love to continue to show that blue collar attitude in my interviews and how I interview. Go ahead, Dr. Hall, with your question for Ambassador Phillips.
Oh, no problem. Well, Ambassador Phillips, coming from very humble backgrounds, again, you think there are any certain hometown values that really kind of helped you strive and become successful?
Well, it's no matter where you are, I think. And I have 4 daughters, and they're scattered around in big cities, or bigger, let's put it this way. And, it's not just getting to know the people on the elevator, living in an apartment, but going, being able to know people. I just think about coming home today, and the way it's all dressed up, and everybody's so carried away for Christmas. And in big cities, you just don't see all that. You can't see all that. So yes, I think it's thrilling to be able to be part of all that.
That's interesting when you talk about it's thrilling to be part of that. What values would you say that you took and were able to, when you talk about your daughters and the success there as well, what did you instill in them?
Well, I hopefully instilled in them as to the world is fascinating, and it's and enjoy it. And as they moved on and moved to different cities and had to deal with all that, I said it's just slowly but surely you just have an attitude to where that's where you went and you got a job there, and but I said, meet people on the elevator, just say hello. Hey, I live on the 9th floor or whatever, and get to know them. Where we have a neighbor, get to know them. Everybody has a story, and I just said, and as for your ambition to go out in the world, just shoot for the moon and hope you get over the fence. And they all laugh every time I tell them.
And he definitely did that. All right, go ahead, Dr. Hall, to your question.
Wow, incredible. I was talking to some young kids. This was last week, and they said, wow, you're a doctor. You must have just been like a whiz kid right through school. And, of course, so detailed in my book, that's not exactly true. So, I wanted to ask Ambassador Phillips, with all his great success, I mean, it seems like you must have been a whiz kid right through school. Tell us a little bit about your schooling, and maybe give us a little idea about with this answer what the book's about.
Oh, I was not a whiz kid at all. I mean, I no. Uh, I, I loved learning,
Yeah.
but I hated testing, and I was really, really scared every time I took a test. So I didn't have the confidence. I got through, and that's about it. And it's to me, it was all terrorizing. I wish I had just relaxed and enjoyed what I was learning, but I just didn't feel that way.
Yeah, it's the thing that happens in school is it can really break you down. Uh, wouldn't you agree? It can kind of really eat at you, saying, "Well, I'm not smart enough." How did you overcome those things when you weren't performing to the level that you know you could perform to?
Well, I did the best I could with that mindset. And I'll use the word I survived, but I didn't feel comfortable in any of the courses. I mean, I loved history and political science more than math and language and all that. But I love the people. I love getting to know the people through junior high. And I just drove home and I just went by my elementary school and my junior high school. And my parents didn't send me off to this fancy northern boarding school. And I went up there at the age of 15, and I loved it. There's a whole bunch of new kids, and they're from all over America, and it just became they were struggling too, and we all struggled together, and that gave me some confidence.
That's important because confidence is important, Dr. Hall. Right? When you gain that confidence, you can go anywhere you want to go.
No doubt. And I mean, I think having that confidence and get around people who further instill that in you, that's very important. And so I wanted to ask Ambassador Phillips. He certainly had some challenges. From again in schooling, people were not predicting that he would go as far as he did, and then when he was younger, we know that he had some physical ailments that he had to have an amputation, and so tell us about going to school. Was that difficult, having an amputation at a young age, dealing with the peers in school? How was that?
It was better because I'd lived at 14 with a foot that was turned outward and had 3 toes.
Wow.
And they slowly moved it over years, and it didn't grow properly, and it was 6 inches by the time I was 14, and they wanted me to get that age before they had an amputation. But what it had, I had a big 6 or 7 inch built-up shoe. It was made out of balsa wood and covered with leather, and and that was a very odd thing to have. But I dealt with it because I was born with it. And I thought about our servicemen coming back overseas and having lost a limb and wake up one morning and their limb is not there and they've got to adjust to life. And it gave me 14 years. So I got rid of that big old shoe and had a regular artificial leg, and it was wonderful.
Wow. And so what overcoming things like that, did that help you move forward in how you set goals for yourself? I'm sure you were a goal setter, right? You talked about, struggling in school, but you had to have that kind of goal setting ideals to say, I can be something, I can do it. I believe in myself. I can take myself to wherever I want to go.
Well, I wasn't that specific. I wasn't embarrassed about it. It's just part of me, and I went on with life. And so it was okay. I mean, I had a attitude about it that it was okay. It is what it is. And so today, most people don't know. But back then, when I finally had it amputated, didn't really know that I had an artificial leg. But it just never stood in my way. It's never held me back. I mean, I just lived my natural life, but it's all right.
Yeah. It's interesting. You think about these challenges, and you got to just say it, it's life. And I'm going to jump in this question, Dr. Hall. Your title of the book's "Come On, America." What made you choose that title?
Well, I was going to put "No Whining," and
Okay.
the lady who wrote the book, and that's kind of what it is. It's a no whining, and I've got a thing on my desk that says "No Whining." That's what it's all about. But I thought that's awfully negative, and the writer of the book, Mary Bogest, thought it was good, and I said, I want some hope. I just don't want a negative book. And we talked a lot about the different positions I've had in government and all this, and so we came up with the terminology of "Come On, America," and I feel that way. Like it's like cheerleading. Come on, America, and I feel good about that.
It definitely sounds like you do. You feel good about that because it's something we have to do. I think our biggest problem, Dave, and I'm going to go to this to Dr. Hall and follow this up to Dr. Hall for the next question, is that we complain and whine and say we can't do things because of certain obstacles we have. And Dr. Hall, I'm sure you heard that and that you chronicled in your book as well, Dr. Hall, these obstacles, and that certain people just put them up and say, well, because I'm poor, I'm not going to make it because I have a disability that no way I can go anywhere in life. Right, Dr. Hall? And I know that Ambassador Phillips believes that. That's why his title of the book is "Come On, America." Right, Dr. Hall?
Exactly. And I have to agree with you 100% on that, Neil. And I think, the author, Mary Burgess, chose Ambassador Phillips because he has that ability to look at things that bring us together as a nation, as people, as something that divides us. And again, there's the whole attitude of optimism of, we're born with whatever physical attributes and traits that we have. But that does not necessarily define you in life. And so Ambassador Phillips has showed this greatly. So this is great.
Thank you. Well said. Well said.
So let's talk about your experiences. How did you become an ambassador, and that experience as an ambassador? How did that kind of drive you the rest of your life after having such a interesting role in government in the way to become appointed an ambassador?
Well, I've always been intrigued with government, along civic service, all the things you do in your community, region, and it just I had an interest in the foreign service because I've traveled a great deal around the world, with or without all my children, to let them see the world and what it looks like and feels like. And so, I mean, I just the idea of being an ambassador, it would expose me to selling America, and I use that terminology when the State Department asked me. I gave a different interview, and they said, "We know you were Secretary of Commerce for North Carolina, and you've done this." And the most intriguing thing, they knew, Condoleezza Rice knew that I had been one of the first students ever to go to Russia.
Yeah.
And I went from my high school in 1961 to a study abroad trip to Russia. And there were great concerns as to me doing this. But we did. And we spent a lot of time in Moscow and around and dealt with those students. We were in the classes over there at Moscow University. And it was just, to me, it was intriguing. And I love it. And that they were intriguing to see an American doing this. So it's that inquisitiveness that I think is taking me to places that I've been.
Most definitely. Dr. Hall, thinking about that, and that's the thing, groundbreaking is something that we've been able to show on this program many times. People that are doing something that has never been done before, Dr. Hall. And that's the thing that brings the inspiration to tell people we can do it. And go ahead, Dr. Hall, the next question.
Most definitely. And just a quick little adding to that is that, this is kind of a show of underdogs, who become heroic. And so, but Ambassador Phillips, again, he points out he's interacted with many world leaders and been around the world. And And so, what was it like? I mean, actually interacting with someone like Condoleezza Rice. What was that like, Ambassador Phillips?
She's fabulous. She's fabulous. She's an incredible lady who, great leader, highly admired, but a real pleasant person to be around. And I was honored to get to know her and work with her. And there are a lot of people, today you hear a lot of stories about the government and all this sort of stuff. I was, people didn't know where Estonia was. They said, well, one-third are Russians, and the Russians used to occupy it for years, and you're interested in Russia. Would you go to Estonia? And I did. And it was the finest time to where the night that I arrived there with my wife, that they would not take me downtown. And I said, why? They said, well, today there was the first cyber attack in the history of a sovereign nation by Russia against Estonia, and they shut it down. And there are all kinds of disturbances in the street. So that began a whole interesting couple of years, and working through dealing with problems of all that, which is incredible. And that's where NATO is in Estonia.
Right.
The home office of NATO,
Wow.
North Atlantic Treaty, think about this, is in Estonia. And can you believe that Russians just shut it down? So that was incredible. But we survived, and then I've spent a lot of time dealing with the Russians and the Soviet ambassador. And, it's just one of those episodes that we all can't believe happened, but it did.
And then looking also, he talked about Condoleezza Rice, but he's really interacted with Mitt Romney, George W. Bush, Bill Clinton. I mean, you have stories. Are they all in the book regarding your experiences with some of these political leaders?
They are. They're just stories that some are more interesting than the others, but his personalities are all intriguing.
Yes.
It's just one of those episodes. Just you love meeting them and talking to them, and spend a lot of time with some of them. I mean, it's just And you look at today, and you look at the dates, and you think about what's going on in America and how do we fit in, and why all this. And my saying is and I said this today at a lunch crowd, that these debates are important to show the world that what democracy is. Anybody can run for president, and it's really impressive to the world. And so it's laborious to us in America, but it's a process. But America is really impressed the world that we're so open.
Yes, definitely. And it's definitely a global society we have to look at, not just America. We have to look at America in certain ways, but ultimately what happens in the world dictates our lives, Ambassador Phillips, not just the United States.
Exactly. We're all wired in. We know looking at our cell phone, we know exactly what's happening around the world. So people hopefully won't react too quickly. They'll understand that there's a real history behind a lot of situations, and don't overreact.
All right. Go ahead, Dr. Halton, another question for Ambassador Phillips. Go ahead and throw different questions. I'm so interested in reading this book, and it blows me away in so many ways, Ambassador Phillips, to the level of the experiences you've had, and especially even in business. So commend you for sure. Go ahead, Dr. Halton, that next question.
Yeah, I mean, and so it's a very important biography that's been written about Ambassador Phillips. And I would say one thing is, myself having served as a captain in the Army and having been a doctor for almost 20 years now, probably right at 20 years in the emergency room, and coming from very, humble beginnings. And I think that as Americans, we have kind of the best of everything. I think we have the best doctors. I think our military's best. And being, coming from where I came from and being part of those two great institutions, and then listening to Ambassador Phillips and his story, it's very, very touching. Very touching. So it just makes you feel really great in your heart. So, Ambassador Phillips, let me ask you this. You were involved with the Special Olympics. Tell us a little bit about that. How did you get involved with Special Olympics, and why did you do it?
Well, I was Secretary of Commerce for the state of North Carolina, and my job was to go around the world and entice companies to set up operations and create jobs in North Carolina. And all of a sudden, I heard from some people up in Washington that Special Olympics, the World Games, which had been in Shanghai, and how they had moved themselves around the world and how big of an event it is. And you really just don't believe the magnitude. So Sergeant Schreiber and I got together. I called him and I said, "Can I come and talk to you?" And I went up that week and talked to him. And I said, "We in North Carolina would love to throw our hat in the ring and see if we could host Special Olympics." And he said, "Well, Texas has already made a proposal, and we think that is probably there could be some other proposals. So make us a proposal." So I came back to North Carolina and asked certain people if they would be willing to support it, certain large company names down here. And I don't know yet exactly how much it'll be, but it's going to be an incredible operation. It's not just the games, but they last 12 days. They have to come down like 10 days early and bring in all these athletes, young athletes from around the world, and put them in private homes or college dorms, and there'll be lots of activity.
Wow.
And it turned out to be the biggest sporting event ever held in North Carolina. And it was during the summer where Carolina, Duke, all these universities were vacant for the summer, and we housed them there and used their facilities. And it's the most inspirational thing I have personally ever got involved in. And people keep talking about it there, exposure. And this is 20 years ago.
Wow.
And it was just phenomenal. And you spend a lot of time and get to know these athletes and what they've achieved. And it was
mind-blowing.
It was far more successful and far more emotional than anybody anticipated.
So what's next for you, Ambassador Phillips?
It's so nice. Oh boy. Well, I've got 4 grandchildren. I got 4 daughters, and they're all going to be right in this room where I'm sitting right now with their presents over Christmas morning and
Fantastic.
Christmas trees up. So, and y'all going to be doing probably the same thing. It is. It's so fabulous.
Oh, it's an exciting time.
Wonderful.
That's for sure. And so that's what's next. But where can we find information on you, purchase your book, and learn more about you? Where's the best place we can go?
Well, it's on Amazon, or there's a blog. I think it's under the name ComeOnAmerica.com, and it's on Amazon. So it's being very successful from what I've been told nationwide, and it's far more successful than I thought it would be.
Well,
I mean, this lady writes stories here in High Point, and all of a sudden it's caught on, and so like you guys, I mean, it's really touching people's hearts.
And that's the thing, that you never know what's going to happen, and you probably didn't think, how am I going to have time to write a book and be involved with such, in the whole process and putting it all together, and now all of that. And are you retired, or you still have your businesses as well, Ambassador?
I sold my businesses 20 years ago,
Okay.
and I'm retired, but I'm still involved in stuff and love it. Keep up with people, and so yes, just I'm not slowing down. I'm gonna find something to do.
Could you imagine Dr. Hall, his Rolodex of who's who he knows? Oh my goodness! Or he couldn't tell. He couldn't tell who he knows. Right? That's the thing for sure. So okay, best place. We already found out the information. Dr. Hall, last thing. Any other questions to add for Ambassador Phillips before we have to let him go?
Oh yeah, no particular questions. Just say that, I mean, he's been far-reaching and just inspirational all of his life since he was a kid, and he's still doing the same thing. So we appreciate you, Ambassador Phillips, and hope you have a great Christmas.
I hope you have a great Christmas. Can I mention one thing?
Sure.
It used to be at Christmas in this room where my children grew up, and we would talk about where in the world would all of you like to go next spring break or summer. You all figure out where in the world would be of intrigue to you, and that so they understand the geography or the languages are challenged back, and that we'd all vote on it once a year, and we go here or there, and that's so you could touch it, and that's how they learn the world, and they're all doing their thing, and so I think people need to learn that America is great, but they need to learn also all these other continents and how it all fits together.
That's such a great point, because as I know, we're a global nation. My businesses don't just work with Americans; they work with everyone all over the world, and that's in my show is all over the world. So we have to understand in a lot of ways that we're a great nation, but there are some great places all over the world that people need to learn about. So great point, Ambassador Phillips, to finish up the show. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Neil Haley Network's Dr. Christopher Hall Show. And I'm excited to welcome to the program Dr. Christopher Hall. Dr. Hall, how are you? I know you're excited about our guest today.
I'm doing great. I'm very excited about our guest today.
So go ahead and introduce our guest, please.
No problem. I'm happy to introduce a gentleman who actually needs no introduction. A Stanley Cup champion, a broadcaster for the Penguins, an author. I'd like to welcome to the show Mr. Phil Bourque. Welcome to the show, Phil.
Yeah, thank you for having me on your show, and appreciate that introduction. It's still a little bit awkward for me to hear that I'm an author, but yeah, If These Walls Could Talk is the name of the book. It got released in October, and I'm happy to be on your show to talk about it. Yeah, let's talk really quickly about writing a book. You know, your successful NHL career, and you decide I'm going to go ahead and take a venture like this, especially how busy you are with the NHL and all these different media engagements. To go and do something like this and have the time to write it is a big challenge, isn't it? It is. I've never written a book before, and I wrote it with Josh Yohe, who writes for The Athletic, the local Athletic here in Pittsburgh, and Josh did an amazing job of, because I'm not physically writing the book. I'm not the one actually on the keyboard writing. That's Josh's job. My job was to tell the stories as in depth as I could. And to be quite honest with you, the book kind of got a life of its own. It was originally to be a story about my time as a Pittsburgh Penguin from 1982 to 92 and winning those two championships in back-to-back in 91 and 92, and maybe dabble a little bit into how I became an NHL player and then how I've segued my playing career into a broadcast career. But Triumph Books out of Chicago was very generous and allowing us to widen the lens, so to speak, and go back to my childhood and my very, I don't know, abusive is probably the best word to use it, both physically and verbally, my relationship with my dad, and then just the trials and tribulations that I went through segueing. It wasn't an easy segue into a second career as a broadcaster. I struggled a bit, and I talk a lot about that. So as much as it's about hockey, there's a lot about life in the book too. Now, I'm going to have one more question, Dr. Hall, before you get to a question. Phil, so basically you're talking in a lot of ways with this book in two different avenues. One about your career and your life, but also the Penguins. And with the title of If These Walls Can Talk, we hear about these things sometimes all the time, right? The different books that Triumph does. Yeah, it's a series. I'm one of the few former athletes of the team of If These Walls Could Talk. I think Jared Remy is one of the former athletes that actually wrote If These Walls Could Talk, of course, with the Boston Bruins. And there's one or two, but most of the books were written by team historians or somebody that's in the media that's followed the team a long time. And so that's probably why they gave me such license to not only go so many layers deep, but being somebody right there in the locker room, on the bench, and being brutally honest about it. But they also, and fair warning, there's a bit of a disclaimer here, there's some language in the book, and there's a lot of people who read the book and they're not offended by it. It's nothing over the top. It's I'm a little sensitive because I have a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old, and I'm not sure if I'm ready for them to read the book yet because it's, and I don't want to use the term locker room language, but it's just the language that we use as hockey players, just going back and forth and how we talk to each other. And so it can be a little bit raw, but also I think it brings you right into the locker room and right in on the bus and on those team flights and on the bench. And you feel like you are right there. And I think that's what Josh did a great job of taking my words and making people feel like, wow, this is so down to earth that I just can easily go from chapter to chapter.
And that's very good. So, Dr. Hall, what question do you have for Phil?
Oh, no, just a quick question maybe about where he grew up and where he's from and pretty much how did he get interested in hockey?
Well, it is an interesting story. I grew up in a town 40 minutes northwest of the city of Boston called Chelmsford. It's a small town, you know, a lot of hardworking people, very close to the New Hampshire border. My dad was an athlete. He went to Boston College, played both baseball and football there. My dad didn't really push me to play hockey. He had a friend of his who was a skater that played a little pickup hockey and just invited me to go with him one day to public skate. And he said, I took it to like a fish to water. He said, hey, maybe you should get your kid. Told my dad, get your kid on the ice. My dad ended up flooding the driveway with the hose, and I just couldn't get enough of it. And that, quickly progressed to just a love for the game where I've told this story a few times that, if I was 5, 6, 7 years old and I had a game in the morning, I would wear all my hockey equipment to bed. And if I could have wore my skates to bed, if my mom would have let me, I would have done that too. But I don't know where it came from. I don't have a great answer for you. I just have this, and I have the same passion now as a broadcaster as I did as that 6-year-old kid waiting to play, a mic hockey game. And, there's a lot of injuries. There was a lot of people saying, oh, you'll never make it. I was never drafted. I was just a simple invite to the Pittsburgh Penguins training camp and somehow got myself a contract. But, and again, I'm really going fast forward through the book here, but the one thing that never wavered was my love and passion for the game and what I was willing to do to get to the next level, even though, I faced a lot of hurdles and a lot of people said I'd never make it. I also had a lot of people come into my life that extended a hand that either steered me in the right direction or, physically grabbed me and said, no, you're going this way. And somehow it all worked out to have an 18-year professional career.
Absolutely. And
awesome.
The thing that you look at, Phil, is your journey. And what a journey. And that journey to the Penguins, when you first got there, did you expect it to be such a long stay with Pittsburgh?
Yeah, when I first got to the Penguins, as I mentioned, I was just an invite. I was promised a couple nights in a hotel and a little bit of meal money, and I got myself a contract, but didn't make the big club. Ended up in the minors, and I spent quite a bit of time in the minors before I figured it out on what it was going to take to get to the next level. So, yeah, 10 years with the Penguins, and I don't know how much you know of the Penguins in the early 80s. We stunk, man. We were bad. I mean, there were people that would go to the games, and they would put paper bags on their head. Because when the 11 o'clock news came on and they showed the highlights of the game, they didn't want their friends or their buddies to see them sitting in the stands, so they put a bag over their head. I mean, that's how bad it was. And, I mean, you could buy a ticket to sit in the last row of the upper balcony, and you could easily go down and get your own section down in the lower bowl.
I remember completely. But you were before the black and gold uniforms. Before you went.
That's right, and the blues, and the blue uniforms, right. But as soon as Mario Lemieux came in 1984, it gave us hope. It gave us a superstar, and we slowly but surely started to build better players around him. And he came in '84, and 6 years later, we were Stanley Cup champions.
Yeah, and I remember all this because again, I'm born and raised in Pittsburgh, huge Penguin fan for sure. And again, I remember those days. Can we beat the Islanders for goodness sakes? You remember that, Phil? Can we remember the Islanders winning all those cups? Are we ever going to beat them? And where we started to develop from the unis to finally making the playoffs and struggling through all that process to finally becoming a dynasty.
Yeah, you're right. And the city was starting to be known as the City of Champions. As you remember, the Pirates,
Yes.
they won in '79. You had the Steelers winning their Super Bowls, and the only thing missing was the Penguins. And at times they were a laughing stock. And you're right, there was times when the Islanders would just run roughshod over the Penguins. We had this long stretch where we just couldn't win a game against the Philadelphia Flyers in the Spectrum, and they would just beat the snot out of us. And so we were a bit of a punching bag in the NHL, but that changed very quickly. I mean, by the time Mario got here, and now we've had a second wave too, with Sidney Crosby coming in. That we're year in and year out. Our expectation, not our hope, but our expectation is to win a Stanley Cup again.
All right, Dr. Hall. Next question for Phil.
No problem. I really want to bring out this point, mainly that adversity builds character. And Phil summarized, I mean, he's actually went through a lot of adversity. I mean, he talked about the issues with his father. He also had a very traumatic accident, where he fractured his neck in 4 different places. Then he's also experienced what's called CTE. Through hockey, okay? So, Phil, you're also a very tough guy. I mean, tell us, how have you been able to deal with this adversity? Are there any points that you could point out for our young people out there today who are listening?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think part of it is just you kind of have to have that. You're kind of born with it, that ability to overcome, that also that inner drive that when somebody says, oh, you're probably not going to make it, that only makes you salivate even more. I can remember when I didn't get drafted in 1982, I remember the Boston Globe newspaper had all the names of the players drafted. I cut it out. I taped it to the mirror of my dresser, and in black Sharpie, I put, "Where are you?" on the top of it, and it motivated me every time I woke up in the morning. It makes for an interesting book and an interesting life that, I don't know, it's just the way my life has been. I've had incredible highs, but my lows have been incredibly low too. You're right. Like I mentioned with my dad, the verbal and physical abuse that I had to endure and overcome that. And then you mentioned my climbing accident in August of 1994, where I fell 4 stories while I was rock climbing, free climbing, and broke my neck in 5 places, fractured my skull, broke all my facial bones, and had to get airlifted to Flagstaff, Arizona. And I probably should have been paralyzed, if not dead, from that fall, but I was able to overcome that and continue my playing career after that. So I've been partly lucky, but also there's just something inside me that my whole life has been a bit of a roller coaster road of ups and downs, and I'm stronger because of the downs. Some people say I'd never change things. Well, I'll be honest with you. There's a couple of things I wish I could change. I didn't have that climbing accident, and my dad didn't beat the crap out of me when I had a bad hockey game. I wish that never happened, but it made me who I am today. And really, I feel like there's nothing I can't overcome. And you're right. When preparation meets opportunity, that's usually where you have success.
That's such the part of what Dr. Christopher Hall brings to the show, Phil, is how he dealt with adversity. Phil, he is a doctor, but he was a ward of the state, dealt with some really difficult times, got in trouble with the law, but then became an emergency doctor. So, Phil, kind of inspiring thing. And I think that when I am becoming a connoisseur of Triumph Books, I've worked with them for 5 years interviewing authors. And you're the first, if these walls could really, because you're an athlete writing this book, is sharing your story compared to, sharing other athletes' stories that didn't write it.
Right.
A tremendous job to really kind of open your heart up to sharing with fans that are Penguin fans and NHL fans of what you've dealt with. You should be commended for doing that, because that's really getting out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, that's exactly what the book did. It got me out of my comfort zone. And I've also realized now as a broadcaster, also I find part of my responsibility is to do public speaking and talk about my ups and downs. So this book was kind of an extension of that, but as I mentioned, went a whole bunch of layers deeper than I normally do when I speak to groups. And it was cleansing, actually, to talk about my dad and talk about all the ups and downs. So now I actually enjoy it because I see how people react to it. I do also, I didn't finish answering your question about CTE, that the thing is,
right.
and I know some people have a strong opinion. Some people are confused about it. I'm more of the latter. I'm confused about it. Unless you're going to crack my head open, to be quite frank about it, and you're going to be able to test me for CTE, nobody really knows when you have it, why you have it. Everybody says it's from contact sports, but I also understand that people who don't play contact sports can also have CTE. And I don't think that just because somebody is depressed and somebody, wants to take their own life, that I don't think it's an automatic connection to CTE. And maybe I'm just not educated enough, but I think that it brings up a lot of conversation about where CTE comes from, how it affects everybody differently, that some people can have, 15, 20 concussions and they're not depressed and they're not suicidal and they're not, blaming it all on the sport that they play. That it's such an interesting topic, and I just wish we knew more about it while these athletes and not just athletes, but people who are depressed and it could be related to CTE. I wish there was a way that we could test for it earlier to diagnose it and help people who are really struggling right now.
That's a true thing, Bill. I'm a former professional wrestler, and I sometimes see signs of CTE. I didn't take maybe the shots to the head that you did, but I took a lot of chair shots, garbage cans, everything in the book in Independence when I was wrestling down south of the Rock, and Moon Dogs and all the old school guys. And it's hard because sometimes I do see it happen, certain symptoms. And Phil, that's the problem. We have not done enough testing yet to really understand this. How it affects a person that's an athlete that's gone through so many traumatic shots to the head.
Yeah, and I don't want to make it just about me, but on a personal level, I can probably list 10 times I was knocked completely out cold, and had concussions. So yeah, in the back of my mind, now in my 50s, do I worry about it? Yeah. Do I have lapses in memory? Yeah. Do I think right away, oh, is this a sign of CTE, or is this just, me being a little bit tired and having a rough schedule this week, and that's the reason I'm forgetting things. So I don't know. I know that some athletes are being heavily compensated because of what's happened to them in the past. I'm not one of those. I knew what I bought in on. I will say this one last thing about CTE and hockey in the NHL. I wore a Jofa helmet that was actually, it looked good. It made my mullet look good. I thought the girls dug it. And it was a helmet that was actually designed for broomball in Sweden. I never should have been allowed to wear that helmet. So I wish the NHL had protected this 20-something-year-old kid that had a chip on his shoulder, had protected me from me and not allowed me to wear that helmet with that helmet, which ended up costing me a few concussions. So, I think that's the responsibility on the leagues, that they have to do a better job at looking at this equipment, not only that protect you, but also the equipment that's hurting players. A perfect example is the elbow pads that players wear in the NHL. They're like bricks, and they're causing concussions. So I just wish that they were. I know they're trying. I just wish things were moving a little bit quicker.
All right. Agree. Okay, Dr. Hall, next question for Phil.
I'm going to say, so tell us a little bit about you. I know and this relates to, you've obviously had a very successful career as a professional hockey player, as a broadcaster, now an author, and sometimes we think that all of this would require some type of extensive college background. Tell us about that. Your decision to, you have a love for hockey, and so you went straight, to it, and that's understood.
Yeah, I did not.
Did you eventually go to college, or do you have any regrets? Obviously, you've been very successful, and that's not something that everyone needs. But talk about that.
I did not go the college route. But also, you have to remember, it was 1980, and at the time, the NHL was probably, I'm going to say, 70% Canadians, 20% U.S., and 10% Euros. So the quickest way to the NHL was through major junior hockey. That was the quickest avenue. But my dad wanted me to go the college route because he wanted me to get a college degree, and he didn't want to pay for college, so he wanted me to go that way. But I'll kind of give you the short version of this story because it can be a little in depth. That Jean Rattel, who was playing for the Boston Bruins, saw me play a hockey game. Next thing you know, kind of fast forward through a family friend. Next thing you know, he was sitting in my living room advising me or wanting to know what I wanted to do with my career because he thought I was a good hockey player. He ended up getting me a tryout up in Kingston, Ontario, or a junior team up there, and I ended up staying there and foregoing my amateur eligibility and becoming a pro in the eyes of amateur hockey and USA hockey. And that's the route that I went because, number one, I wanted to get to the NHL as quick as possible, and I knew the Junior A route was that. But also I needed to get away from my dad for the reasons I stated earlier, that I needed to spread my wings and get out of town. And so that was the other part of it. Things have changed, though, recently. In the last 10 years, USA hockey and college hockey and USHL hockey are all top-notch breeding grounds for the NHL. Things are changed now. I advise kids now to go the college route. You know, if you need an extra year, you can go to the USHL and get a little more mature in your body and your mind and then go to the college route and start a year later. But the way the NHL teams are scouting and drafting college kids now and how competitive that league is now and how they prepare you physically with all the weight training and all the preparation they do there, I think it's as good as going the junior route, but I felt that was my quickest option that many years ago.
Exactly. Can I do a follow-up on that, Neil, question?
Yes, sir.
On that. And so basically my point with that is that, you know, there's really, there's actually thousands of kids that don't go to college, but obviously with drive, determination, hard work, being in touch with pressure, you can be successful. These days, actually, it's not uncommon for these kids now to go from high school straight to professional sports, whether it be basketball or football. We're seeing that. So you were just way ahead of your time is what it sounds like. So.
Yeah, but I think now what I'm witnessing in our sport is why we're having so many 18, 19-year-olds not only come into this league, but our difference makers is just the preparation. I mean, these kids, when they're 15 or 16, they're starting to, not only on the nutrition side, but more specifically the training side. They're getting personal trainers, and training is so advanced now that these kids come in now at 18. Well, we have a couple 18-year-olds playing in the NHL, and they're outstanding. They look like they belong. And it's one thing to have skill. It's another thing to have that man strength and also the mental strength to endure an 82-game schedule. I think it's absolutely unbelievable. I could never imagine playing in the NHL at 18, but we're seeing it year in and year out here in the NHL.
And that's that. I agree with you. And I think that we have to look at even the money you make, it's not going to last forever, Phil. And that, you know, that education is such an important thing to educate people financially. Are you seeing the same type of thing for life as you are with NFL players and some Major League Baseball players, that they're not able to save their money after they retire?
I think these guys are making so much money now that back in the day when we played, I mean, if one guy or two guys on the team had a financial advisor, that was probably the average. Everybody was just winging it because you didn't make that much money. You made good money. Of course you had the 1% were making big money, but the rest of us were kind of making all the same. And I know lots of guys. I was one of those guys. I didn't make a whole lot for the majority of my career, and I would work in the off season. I would work, a labor type job, construction. I'd work on blacktop crews, and I work as a mason's helper and stuff like that to keep myself in shape and make a few bucks in the summertime. It was just the norm back then. But I think now that, these players, the average, I think is $2.5 million a year now, just your average guy. If you're a fourth line, this fourth line guy is making $3 million a year, scoring 5 or 6 goals. That's the type of money where, that's generational money. And so I think almost all players now have some kind of a financial advisor, but that just wasn't the way it was back when I played. And even the guys that played in the 70s, they made nothing, and they have nothing now. It's just the reality of what it is. Just economic times have changed so much, though, that now players are making enough money for their kids.
So that's interesting you say that, Phil, because it's still in the NFL, it's not happening. These guys, even though some of them are making great money, the others, I guess it's because there's more players on the roster that a lot of them are broke after they retire. So it's good that that's not happening as much in hockey anymore as before with money. So
no, it is good, and I don't know what the what the answer is. I mean, you can try to educate these kids, but you're right. I mean, some of them get too much too quick, and I think a lot of it is who they surround. We are all guilty by the company that we keep, and that I think that, you know, a lot of these young kids, and whether it's their teens or early 20s, they get so much so quick, and they don't have the right people around them, and they just get mooched on, and they don't think 1,000 here, 1,000 there, 1,000 there, but next thing you know, it's gone. It can happen quick. It's happened to a lot of guys.
All right. Well, fantastic. Doctor, question for Phil before we have to say goodbye.
Well, not necessarily a question, just a quick summary that, his life, as exemplified by his book, has been an example, a magnificent example for a person with drive, hard work, ambition. And so I'm very happy he came on the show today. Thank you, Phil.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for reviewing the book with me. Again, it was a labor of love. Hopefully, if people read it, that they laugh, that they cry, that they feel motivated, they feel inspired. That's really why I did it. Not only to educate people and kind of take you behind the scenes about the Pittsburgh Penguins, but also the ups and downs in my life, and that don't ever take no for an answer.
We're back to the Neil Haley Show in the Total Celebrity segment, and I'm excited to welcome the program Jane Levy of Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. Jane, thanks for calling. How are you?
I'm doing good.
I'm excited to chat with you, and I watched the trailer, and I think this is going to be a great hit because everyone loves to sing. We sing in the shower, we sing when our favorite song, but I never thought in a million years we could hear other people sing through a conversation. So tell us kind of the premise of the show.
The premise of the show is about a young woman named Zoe Clark who lives in San Francisco, and she works as a coder. And she has a father who is dying of a rare degenerative disease in which he's like slowly losing his ability to speak and to walk, and she's been suffering headaches, and she's nervous that she might have the same thing that her dad has. So she goes and she gets an MRI, and in the MRI machine, San Francisco suffers an earthquake, and she gets stuck in the machine for a little bit, and the Spotify playlist that was playing over the speakers to try to calm her down goes wild, and she leaves the doctor's appointment, and she steps onto the street of San Francisco, and suddenly she can hear everyone's innermost thoughts and feelings, but she hears them through musical numbers.
I think this is crazy because it's going to be, how many people love musical type shows. And this is just a different idea of it. So when you first got pitched this idea, what did you think of it? I mean, I think it's unique, and that's important for a successful show, is have something unique that's different.
Yeah. There is so much that I couldn't have anticipated when I first read the script. Musicals are really special. I had an experience the other day on set where we just couldn't figure out what the scene was about. And me and the director and the writer and the other actor were like, but is it about this? But is it that? And we couldn't crack the code. And then my scene partner sang because there was a song in the middle of the scene. And after he sang, everything made sense. And we were like, oh, that's what this scene is about. The scene special working. There's a lot of reasons, but one of them is that it communicates things that we can't communicate just through speaking. And so as an actor, it's been an interesting exercise, acting to a song, or reacting to a song. Right. And it's really a joyful experience, I will say. It does something to the molecules in the air. Like everything shifts after we do a musical number. And I will say, I think most people have experienced this, that endorphins from dancing are a real thing.
So rate your singing if you were going to go on stage and sing.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I want to hear that. That's great.
How about this? You can rate my singing after you hear it.
Okay. But would you consider when you were growing up as a kid that you were a singer in that way when you were going through the whole acting experience as a child and singing? What would you say was your talent more the acting ever, or were you like being on stage and acting like musicals and stuff like that?
Well, I did musicals as a kid, but mostly because that was the only platform in which I could act in. That was the only thing available to me. I am not tone deaf. I can carry a tune, and I have learned that singing is something that it's like a muscle that you can strengthen. You can actually become a better singer if you practice in the right way and you see, a vocal coach, which I have. But I would definitely not say that I'm a great singer.
Well, but
but maybe
go ahead. Sorry.
I don't know. Maybe you'll disagree.
See that, but again, what do you think you're most talented as an actor? What do you think your best strength is?
Wow, that's a hard question. I don't know.
Is it your ability to make people
I'm suddenly
laugh?
very nervous.
Yeah, that's okay. Is it your ability to make people laugh? Is it your ability and dramatic? Because look at your career. It's spanned in different ways of different characters in so many ways. It's not like you've been typecast one character your whole career.
Right. I guess my ability is to be willing and able to showcase my faults. And I think in that way I become human and relatable.
I think that's your character from back even in Suburgatory to now. You see that in your growth as an actor, is that you do show that. You really are human, and that's what people want to see on screen. And especially in this character,
right.
We can see it. We can see your faults. We can see your challenges, and that it is really relatable on screen.
Yeah.
And I caught that in our interview. Sorry about that. But what is your hope for the hope for the show in so many ways, Jane? What do you want to see it go?
I hope that people love it, and I hope that we get to keep making it because we're having such a good time.
It's something where you're not like, okay, 15 takes. It's like, oh, fun. I get to hear this song again. And then the songs are in your head all day, right? After work.
Right. That is true. That is that. It's been a little bit of torture, how deeply embedded these songs get into your psyche.
I know this for a fact, Jane, because I have 6 kids, and they sing all the time, and certain songs that I wouldn't want in my head end up in my head, and I'm singing them throughout my day at work in my head. So it really is true.
Yeah.
The idea happens. Everyone has a song in their head at some point in their day to try to get through.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Waiting in line or different things, or you hear this music and you hear this song over and over again. So what's on your playlist? Do you have a playlist right now that you jump to?
Over Christmas, I think Spotify has a really great feature, the radio feature. They somehow, whatever their algorithm is, I always like the songs. So I have been playing like Etta James radio all through Christmas. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's what everyone listens to specifically, and they have their songs. Is there a favorite top 40 song you like to listen to right now that you're all into?
Top 40 song.
Like a hot pop culture song right now that you're hearing all over the place.
I mean, I love all of Ariana Grande's hits. Like, Is that what?
That's a great answer.
Yeah,
yeah, that's great. Okay. All right. So Jane, it's exciting. Everyone needs to tune in January 7th, 10 p.m. Eastern. They should definitely watch the trailer right now at NBC.com, and they can see what is going to be a really fun show to watch and watch your character sing. And I can't wait to watch. And I appreciate you calling.
Thank you so much.
All right. Take care, Jane. Thanks. Okay. Bye-bye.
Take care.
You're listening to Neil Haley Show, and we'll be back in just a moment.